Our plates have been fired and they are white and matte and have no shine. And if you look at this one here, this is what they will look like when they finish. The idea with the glazing is to make it look like watercolour. So the glazes I've made are quite thin and they will run and drip into the spaces you've created with your impressions of the leaves and the flowers. So here is the glaze. When you first see it, it may be dry and flaky, and this is absolutely fine. The glaze is reconstituted with just a little bit of water. And it doesn't matter too much how much you put in, but you don't want to make these even thicker. If you look at the dried out ones, you can see how they take on their colours as soon as you add a little bit of water to them. So just give them a quick stir with your paintbrush, and you need it to be of a sort of drippy consistency to paint with. And this last one here is the clear glaze, which we'll come back to later on. Once you are ready, you need some water and a wet brush, and the smallest brush you can probably find, and you will pick up the glaze on your brush and drip it into the spaces. Now, where you have flat leaves, you will find it a little bit harder to make the glaze move around unless you've really pressed them in hard. And I'll show you in a second the difference between doing one of these flatter leaves and these heavier impressions we created with the stalks and the grasses. So here we are on one of those heavier grasses, and I'm using the darker green so it's really visible on camera. And what you have to do is just with your wet brush pick up quantities of the glaze, and it will run into the right spaces for you. So you can help it along with your brush, but you can tip backwards and forwards and it should run along the channels that you've created when you've rolled these spaces. Here I'm showing you that if you get some in the wrong place, you can just use a clean wet brush to wipe away any glaze that's not where you want it to be. Sometimes it might go outside of your lines, and you just clean up with a wet brush. It will dry in no time at all. I'm just speeding up the process so that you can see how it looks as it's going into place. And this part of the process probably took me about 8-9 minutes. So I estimate that for you to glaze your plate will probably take you altogether around 15 minutes, including the clear glaze over the top. Time for the clear glaze. This is bizarrely not clear, but green. Lots of clear glazes come in different colours. I've had blue and I've had white, but this one is going to cause yours to look like it's got a thick green layer on it. And before we do anything, we're going to do the underside, but not the bottom. You have to be really careful to get absolutely no glaze where your plate has to touch the kiln. So if you do get any clear glaze where it will touch the kiln, then you will have to wash it off. You can either use a brush as I showed you before, or you can just get a sponge and make sure it's completely no glaze on the bottom. So first of all, you'll do the underside edge. And it's important to do this because when you pick up your plate, it needs to feel like a plate that you would want to eat off. And if you don't glaze this tiny part of it, it makes a bit of a difference. When you learn how to create plates and you are making them on a wheel, for example, you can create foot rings and sort of other details. But in the time that we had, we've done a flat bottom, which is the easiest thing for us to glaze today. So turning your plate around in your hand, you'll just do this edge really carefully, not getting it on the bottom part of the plate. And you will notice the glaze dries really quickly, which is what makes it easier to do a few layers. So on this outside edge, I'm probably going to do 1 or 2 layers, and then on the inside, I'm going to do 3 or 4 because these have a texture to them, and it works better if your clear glaze is slightly smoothing out that texture so that you can use it as a real plate. I'm going to clean up the table now because I don't want to get any of that glaze I've spilt on the bottom of my plate as I do the inside of it. There we go, all clean. And now watch my lazy cheating trick. I'm going to tip a little bit of the glaze in and just move it around with a brush. It does not matter how this looks. You can just throw it all over the place as quickly as you like. And you'll notice, you can see it drying already. I'm going to probably do 3 or 4 layers like this. And once it's done, it'll be ready to go into the kiln. Enjoy!